The recent change of hidden nameplates in Champ Select has been received with mixed opinions. There are good and bad things. I feel like personally it's made my experience worse in some ways, but better in others. However, my opinion is my own, and certain people, Tyler1, think that the Champ Select should be reverted. Well, to answer this prayer, known League, let's call him a coder, Hawalt has developed a quote-unquote lightweight toolkit that will take the client back to before the hidden nameplates were a thing, as seen in this image. As far as getting banned for this kind of thing goes, I don't think that Riot has a way of being able to detect you using it, as long as you don't type anything about it in the chat, because they can obviously see that. It does kind of give an unfair advantage, so use it at your own risk, but I think you should be safe. In the description below is a link to this attachment. Let it be noted that I do not have this, I do not use this, I do not need to, but I thought it was a pretty sick thing of Hawalt to do for the community, so I thought I'd share it with you guys. If you have any questions, refer to the documents in the download file or message Hawalt on Twitter. His link will also be in the description. Will you use this? Let me know in the comments below. Bye!
I may have miscalculated. Fuck. I don't have any rating points on one of these. You forgot about Dre. We don't have a name yet. If you guys want to, my dad said that we should leverage the strength of the community to name her. If you guys have a good name, it's wide open. Jelly bean cappuccino cupcake. You're like my sister with these stupid names. She doesn't deserve names. She deserves a name like Ugly. No, nothing cute to make up for Trashy. You're KDR, you're talking just like my sister. No. She deserves a terrible name. Like Ugly or Mid or running impediment. She's like clumsy. I like that word. I like the name clumsy. Mid. Kamala. Come on. Name her Ugly Trash Can.
An enemy has been slain.
Worst cat of all time. That's her name. Piece of trash. Takes. Chat. I'm trying to figure out if I can pull this sacrifice off. Chat. Get a, see if I can Schrodinger. I'm not naming her anything. She doesn't even deserve it. Okay, here we go. Take. Check. Perpetual. It's not perpetual. Alright, so enough about bitwise looks like. It's not bad. This also reminds me of Code by Petzold.
An ally has been slain.
This won't take us long to read, so I recommend you read this. This is called How Computers Work. It's part of the CS50 recommended books. National bestseller, more than 2 million copies sold. There's a transistor. Or resistor? I think that's a resistor. This is the 10th edition of this thing. There's inside the computer. Alright, the evolution of technology. For Shannon, I always ask why. Ron White has been writing How Computers Work for 20 years. He's also been an executive editor at PC Computing, Byte, and GroovyPost.com. Computer columnist for Windows Source and 80 Micro. How Computers Work was named the best nonfiction computer book, and his writing's been honored by this and that. I'm going to skip the acknowledgements.
An ally has been slain.
Famous quote, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, often attributed to Isaac Asimov, but it's Arthur C. Clarke. Sorcerers have their magic wands, powerful, potentially dangerous tools with lives of their own. Witches have their familiars, creatures disguised as household beasts that could, if they choose, wreak the richest havoc. Mystics have their golems, beings built of wood and tin, brought to life to do their master's bidding. We have our personal computers. PCs, too, are powerful creations that often seem to have a life of their own. Usually they respond to a word or a mouse, with a spoken incantation that perform tasks we couldn't imagine doing ourselves without supernatural help. But even as computers successfully carry out our commands, it is often difficult to quell the feeling that there's some wizardry at work here. And then there are times when our PCs, like malevolent spirits, rebel and open the gates of chaos for the ordered columns of numbers, carefully evolved sentences and our beautifully crafted graphics. When that happens, we're often convinced that we are indeed playing with power not entirely under control. We become sorcerers' apprentices, whose every attempt to write things leads to deeper trouble. Whether our computers are faithful servants or imps, most of us soon realize there's much more going inside these solid boxes than we really understand. PCs are secretive. You have cases and you're confronted with components. Few give any clues as to what they are. Most of them consist of sphinx-like microchips that offer no more information about themselves than some secure code printed on their surfaces. The ways of circuit tracing touched on the board is fascinating, but meaningless hieroglyphics. Some crucial parts, such as the hard drive or power supply, are sealed with printed omens about the dangers of peeking inside. Omens that put the shame of the warnings on Pharaoh's tomb. This book is based on two ideas. One is that the magic we understand is safer and more powerful than the magic we don't. This is not a hands-on how-to book. It looks for an introduction to the screwdriver for this part of the other. But perhaps you know more about what's going on inside of all these stoic routines and really less formidable when something does go awry. The second idea behind this book is that knowledge in itself is a challenge or a goal. How about that? This book is written to respond to your many reasons about the goings-on that boxes sit in front of us several hours a day. If this book puts your questions to rest or raises new ones, it will have done its job. At the same time, however, I'm trusting that knowing the secrets behind the magician's legerdemain won't spoil the show. This is a real danger. Mystery is often mistaken in this knowledge. And I hate to think that anything in reading this book takes away that sense of wonder when you first managed to make your PC for some damage. Look at it, Alright. Automobiles have followed the same development cycles as the computer. The Rolls Royce for today cost $100, get 1,000,000 miles per gallon, and explode once a year, killing everyone inside. Robert Kringley. Introduction to the 10th edition. This book was so much easier to write 10 years ago. Computers were relatively new, and they were pretty much the same. There were only a few important differences, whether it was an Apple or a Windows. There was some variation in size, portability, customization, could be by installing different drives and international computer at PC Computing, the magazine where I worked, was a wonderful pastime, a source of many stories in the magazine. If I made a mistake and the computer groaned its last breath, that often made for an even better story. One reason PC disasters made for good reading is that every computer user had a similar story of computer disaster. We're all in the same boat because even the editors of the computer magazines, the truth be told, didn't know what they were doing about it. Back then, if you took a class in college, you waited your turn to run a program and some monster of a computer that would return a solution in the form of trump cards. There was no formal place to learn about PCs. Manuals were useless beyond finding out how to plug a PC in the wall and where the switch was. Programs that worked one way had no resemblance to how other programs worked. We learned about computers by trial and error, by going to user groups made up of equally befuddled PC owners and by reading magazines. Before I went to work for PC Computing in 1989, my teacher for PC Magazine, PC World, Byte, Popular Computing, and other magazines covering this new technical phenomenon. We found a morsel of information in one magazine and another, and eventually we pieced together what was going on inside that steel box on your desktop. But I was going to tell you why it was easier to write this book 20 years ago. Back then you could say, all someone needed to know about a floppy disk and a couple of 2-page spreads. Something as mind-busting and as intricate as monitoring you could do with one illustration. The technology was, in retrospect, elementary. How computers and their components work was actually simpler when you sketched it all out and added some callouts and arrows. No wonder I figured I could, with the help of a great illustrator, write a book that laid out all the mysteries. It's really fascinating. But today, Lord love a duck. Today, there's not even a simple explanation of what simply is. Simply having a microchip doesn't cut it. Microchips are everywhere in watches, cars, thermostats, ovens, refrigerators, flashlights, dog collars, coffee pots, even cats. Just about anything that uses electricity. But these aren't computers. They're just electronic doodads that use the abilities of microprocessors to perform routine chores. To be a computer, something must be programmable. It must be capable of doing different things based on the instructions you give it. Your yard sprinkler system is a computer. True, it doesn't do a lot of different things, but you can program it to water different parts of your yard for different lengths of time and on different days, or not at all if it's raining. Microwave ovens are computers we use by programming it on the fly, by setting how long it will cook at different temperatures, or you can push a popcorn button to tell the oven to use a pre-programmed sequence. These are all computers, but the truth is, they're not very interesting. How deeply do you care about how your sprinkler works? But a computer that can be programmed to do so many different things, now that's a computer worthy of the name. And we see them everywhere today. Phones, cameras, tablets, music players, and TVs have all become computers that are indispensable parts of everyday life. Our lives are richer for the knowledge, problem-solving, communication, entertainment, health, and income they provide. They certainly deserve to be included in a book that calls itself How Computers Work. My problem anyway, is that they make organizing a book like this an exercise in controlled chaos. In previous editions, I simply had a section on storage, another on displays, and one on networking. I admit that in this edition I've fallen back on that system in some chapters out of pure convenience, but certainly the workings of today's computers are not so compartmentalized. The more I looked at computing in the last 20 years, the more it struck me that the real story of how computers work is how they are like living creatures, organisms that have evolved and continue to evolve. These metal and silicon and plastic and glass animals have followed the same patterns of mutation, natural selection, and survival of the fittest that Darwin found in plants and animals. I've tried to explain how technological developments following the same rise and fall that carry organic species to new shores. Today's achievements in computing are possible only because they rise out of the fossil beds of earlier technology. There is no way for today's technology to have been invented from scratch. I recall that some 30 years ago I was working for a computing service company that relied on mainframes, an obsolete term that describes computers the size of a couple of high-end refrigerators slammed together. They used two kinds of storage, hard drives and magnetic tape. 5 megabyte hard drives were the size of large garbage cans, and the platters where information was stored could have doubled as hubcaps. You'd have seen the magnetic tape at work to understand one of the computer's most common terms, RAM, random access memory. It sounds as if data retrieved willy-nilly from all parts of the memory chips with no order. Memory chips got their RAM moniker because retrieving tape memory was not random. If you wanted data stored on a reel at the innermost 10 inches of tape, the computer had to wind through the first 3,500 feet to get that data. Sure, it would have been better to skip tape altogether and go straight to hard disks, but to paraphrase a certain infamous quote, sometimes you don't build computers with the technology you wish you had, you build them with the technology you have. Life in the primordial seas had to get the hang of existence as one-celled organisms before the cells could master hooking together and dividing up the jobs needed for mutual survival. Some of the bigger organisms learned to move by wiggling. They developed a way to filter oxygen from water, and later that system developed into lungs that could suck oxygen out of water. It took millions of years for these changes to evolve. You couldn't create magnetic disks until you learned how to record data to magnetic tape. Then it took years of engineers trying first this and then that to make the disks smaller and at the same time more capacious. Current solid-state drives come from the fossils of technological forays such as bubble memory that didn't survive. Maybe we'll talk about core memory some other time. Core magnetic memory, which is very interesting. Old first memory made by DEC. The most amazing aspect of this whirlwind of technological progress is that it's only taken 20 years to go from floppy to solid state, from displays that amounted to stick figures and animated graphics that are almost indistinguishable from film images. That smartphone in your pocket has more computing power than those refrigerator-sized mainframes. Wires that have been needed for communications for a century are likely to disappear completely in the next 10 years, along with the need for local data centers. It's possible the keyboard and mouse will be replaced. In fact, much of the hardware we use today as it gets smaller and more efficient may migrate from our desks and our pockets to become parts of our eyes, ears, and brain. And that's just in the last 20 years. And now we can't imagine this kind of technology any more than single-celled organisms could have imagined a dinosaur. Let's check back with each other after a couple of decades and let's see what we're possible. Alright, this is a battery and a light switch. Chapter 1, what makes a computer a computer? If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Those of us who studied physics in high school half a century ago had to learn about the 6 simple machines. There were the wheel and axle, the lever, the pulley, the inclined plane, the wedge, and the screw. The explanations of how they saved us labor were invariably accompanied by illustrations of people who looked like they were working awfully hard. Just as invariably, someone would quote Archimedes saying, "Give me a long enough lever and a place to stand, and I will move the earth." Note that Archimedes gave somebody else the really hard job, finding a lever that would have to stretch from Earth to Jupiter. Still, in the days before any form of power, other than the muscles of man and horse, the simple machines were ingenious. Those 6 machines were combined in various ways to create wagons, catapults, irrigation systems, roads, bridges, and, need I mention, the pyramids. Put some teeth on a wheel and you get a gear. Combine gears with levers and pulleys and you have a clock. The ingenuity with which clever people combined simple machines into complex and powerful machines grew every century, abetted by engines running on steam, water, compressed air, and chemical fuels that magnified the power of these simple machines, turned complex to a point that even Archimedes didn't imagine. Then came electricity. Here was a mysterious force that would run through the right kind of metal wires. Those wires could be bent and wrapped around other wires and pieces of metal to produce an engine that, unlike water mills, was portable. One that, unlike steam and chemically fueled engines, didn't threaten to blow up. If electricity had produced no more than a safer, more efficient motor to run all these complex and simple machines, that in itself would have been a boon to civilization. But scientists and engineers discovered new properties in this force, despite the fact they didn't know what it was and couldn't see it. You know the results. Everything from the electric light bulb to the computer, smartphone, tablet, in which you might be reading this very book. Electricity really began to pay off when engineers looked beyond its ability to make a filament glow or a motor turn. They began to discover more possibilities in electricity's partnership with magnetism, in the electromagnetic fields produced by electricity that would interact with other matter, even over great distances. They found that electricity and light were the two facets of the same thing, an electromagnetic spectrum with mostly invisible fields made of waves vibrating at different frequencies and the sizes which range from the microscopic to the Earth encompassing. Like the simple machines in medieval ages, these new elementary principles could be combined in endless ways to build new tools to accomplish jobs that were previously unimaginable. The real power of electromagnetism, engineers found, was less in its ability to move trains, see inside a patient's body, and turn night into day, than it was to store, manipulate, and distribute information. All these uses are some very fundamental principles. Behind all these uses are some very fundamental principles of physics that have led us to the point of discovering the true nature of everything in the universe. These simple principles of new age that you're going to look at in the first part of this book. I can already hear some of you saying, hey, when do we get to the stuff about computers? You're there. The subject of these first chapters are the stuff of the computers. And it doesn't matter what type of computer you're talking about. Android, desktop, laptop, table, digital music player, camera, GPS, smartphone, smartwatch, or glass. All are computers. All work using some version of the principles and technology you'll find here. Chapter 1, the ghostly Legos of computing. The entire world right now is run by information. Our entire world is being controlled and operated by tiny invisible ones and zeros that are flashing through the air and flashing through the wires around us. Chris Doyle, computer activist, hiding out in Canada. Louis C.K. has a routine where his daughter asks a simple question that leads to a metaphysical issue people have pondered for ages. It begins with a question about why changing, why are there clouds? It becomes a dissertation on why Louis doesn't know more, why he didn't listen in school, etc. The string of answers finally lead father and daughter to an ultimate question. Because some things are and some things are not. Why? Because things that are not can't be. Why? Because nothing would be. Understanding how a computer works is a lot like that. You say a hard drive uses a magnet to write files, but then you're obligated to explain why. And then you have to say why magnets attract certain metals, and then explain why magnets have these invisible force fields. And don't expect your computer to explain itself. It maintains a sphinx-like silence. Shouldn't there be doodads and thingamajigs that are pumping or swinging, flashing or beeping, vibrating or rotating, or at least ticking and talking? For all you can tell about your computer works from opening it up and looking inside, your computer might as well be carved out of soap. In your computer, things that make it really work are all ghosts. You've never seen them. You see only what they do, like a lamp thrown to the floor by a poltergeist. And computers, from PCs to a Galaxy X phone, tightly tuck away their secrets. You have to keep asking why. If you ask long enough, you get into physical states filled with objects so small you can't see them, or that exist only in ghostly states, such as the vast parts of the electromagnetic spectrum or some screwy spinning quantum string, all of which are invisible to mere humans. The only way to get even a hint about what these little ghosts are like is to fling them around in the giant, mile-wide magnets, like the Large Hadron Collider, until they smash into each other and create even smaller, rarer ghosts that vanish as soon as they appear. We're just left with only the contrails they leave behind. Those who try to figure out what is happening. These little invisible ghosts are the ultimate things, the tiny invisible ones and zeros, as Bernie says. The ghostly little digital Legos that unite in different combinations to create everything in your computer, tablet, or smartphone. To really understand how a microprocessor or monitor or printer works, you have to understand the ghostly workings of electricity, waves, magnetism, binary math, and data patterns. Let's examine them all. Don't be frightened. They're friendly ghosts, I think. How waves take the universe on a joyride. Waves do far more than carry surfers on a wet thrill ride. Waves are essential to the working of computers. They move data from one place to another and provide the beat that every PC component marches to. Without waves, we'd never be able to see the solutions, or images, or words that result from the machine's computations. Without waves, we'd be beached, or we may not exist at all. According to some theories of physics, waves are the ultimate stuff of the universe. Space, Earth, and you and I are no more than the interference patterns created by the crisscrossing of waves, which are created by tiny, tiny, tiny vibrating strings. Indeed, at times it seems as if the thing we think of as solid Earth is just an illusion, Under the right circumstances, waves pass through our buildings, rocks, waters, and other waves, even our own bodies. It's as if the Earth is no more than a wad of soft tissue. Here's how this humming master universe reaches out and plays tunes on the computer. When you ever played with toys, you're familiar with the two most common mechanical waves in the universe: transverse waves and longitudinal waves. When you and your friend move the ends of a jump rope up and down, the waves sometimes traveling the road of transverse wave. Here's a transverse wave. Here's the amplitude and the wavelength. It's the distance between two troughs. Examples of transverse waves include light, surface earthquake waves, surface water waves, magnetic waves, and the waves people in a football stadium create. Longitudinal waves are found in the depths of water and earth. A tsunami or earthquake moves tremendous energy through these media until they reach the Earth's surface, or the shallows of the sea, where they convert to transverse waves. Freeway traffic jams, with their alternative congestion and fleeting moments of faster driving, are also longitudinal waves. There's longitudinal waves with compression, dilation. There's a wavelength, an amplitude, and undistorted medium. Both types of waves can carry energy, information, and destruction. They can be measures of time and distance. Both types are created with some force, like vocal cords, a rock thing, and water and media snapping to earth is exerted against their mediums. Transverse waves can travel through solids and liquids, but they do not travel through gases. The air does not have the elasticity needed to push the waves' vibrating molecules back into place. Only longitudinal waves may use gases as a medium. Despite that difference, longitudinal waves can warp into transverse waves and vice versa when they confront a different kind of medium. Both waves have similar components. In both types of waves, two fundamental measurements are the wavelength and frequency. Wavelength is the distance between one crest, the compressed area, to the next. Frequency is the number of waves measured by wavelength that pass through a stationary point in one second. The longer the wavelength, the lower the frequency. Frequency is measured by hertz. Generally, the higher the hertz, the more energy the wave contains. In audio, hertz means a higher pitched sound. So hertz is the number of cycles per second. Transverse waves in the water and longitudinal waves in the air are both called mechanical because they depend on the mechanical mechanism of the media to propagate. That, however, is an illusion. The energy that goes into creating the wind waves is transferred by molecules knocking against each other. Similar how runners in the relay race hand off the baton. Next time you're at a lake or beach, observe how a bird or boat floating on the surface of the water only bobs up and down in place when a wave passes under it. Its horizontal position does not change. Another type of wave, electromagnetic, is not mechanical. Electromagnetic waves encompass light, infrared light, radio, X-rays, gamma rays, and neutrinos. They're all part of the electromagnetic spectrum, with waves range from the wavelength smaller than an atom to wavelengths bigger than the Earth. Take a look at this. Gamma rays are 10 to the negative 12. This is the radiation length. X-rays are shorter. Ultraviolet is nearly visible. Then we have visible light. Then we've got infrared light, microwave light, and radio. Radio is very long wavelengths. The scale of the wavelength is interesting as well. Here's the frequency. The higher the frequency, the lower the wavelength, if that makes sense. And this is the temperature of objects at which this radiation is the most intense wavelength. Electromagnetic waves do not require any type of media and create any waves that can travel through the vacuum of space. Although non-mechanical, electromagnetic waves are transverse, doubly transverse. They consist of electric and magnetic fields that, like other transverse waves, vibrate perpendicular to the direction in which the wave is moving. But the two fields vibrate at right angles to each other, and each expansion and collapse of a field creates an opposite field. The vibrations of electrical fields generate magnetic fields. Vibrations of magnetic fields generate electrical fields. The result is a never-ending bootstrap that pushes the wave forward at the speed of light. How information rides the waves? What do surfing, lasers, computer circuits, televisions, rock concerts, and the ever-popular death ray have in common? They all depend on waves. Without all the types of waves that surround us and that penetrate us at times, And without the ability of waves to carry information nearly instantly to all parts of the globe, chances that civilizations we pass in it today would have never happened. It takes no great technology to use waves to send information. You simply turn a wave on and off. It's the basis for jumble drums, Morse code, the earliest modems, and it's called encoding. Regardless of the form of encoding, the sound or electrical waves are not changed. Information is encoded in how often a wave is created and how long the wave exists. Morse code and the first 300 baud modems use short and long pulses of electricity to create a simple binary code, the forerunner of how data is stored and transmitted to computers. The short bits and the long DAs in different combinations represent different letters of the alphabet. A total of 9 pulses of electricity are composed of 3 letters that represent SOS, the Morse code distress cry. Note that the frequency and amplitude of the electrical signal does not change, only how long the same electromagnetic signal is broadcast. There's a high level of noise and the key is pressed, little or no signal when the key is not pressed. Long and short drum beats are not possible with jumbo drums. They depend on recognizable patterns in which volume of individual beats and its length of silences between the beats create a pattern that can convey information. Because we're not fluent on jumbo drums, here's the visualization of a 22-second drum solo by Gene Krupa. It breaks in the waveform to pick bass drum beats. At the right end of the segment, you can see how intervals between the bass go shorter and shorter, creating the type of pattern we could, if we didn't have all our phones coming out of our ears, use for communications. Amplitude modulation makes changes to the amplitude of the wave. Frequency makes change to the frequency. Jumble drums and Morse code have obvious limitations. Both are slow and depend on a skilled person doing a hands-on job. What is needed are entirely different modulation methods. 3 modulations methods do the job. FM, frequency modulation, AM, amplitude modulation, and pulse modulation. Pulse modulation is the newest way to add information to waves and get information out of them. It was developed because modems have reached their limit as to how quickly and accurately they can turn a signal on and off. The solution is to use different frequencies for amplitudes to stand for combinations of letters. This scheme is an enormous improvement over early modems, but is limited to text and visual information. Transmitting analog signals without first converting them to digital signals requires AM or FM. Either AM or FM can be used to convey information over radio waves or electrical circuits, using frequencies from 100,000 hertz radio through microwave to 10,000 billion hertz infrared. The higher the frequency, the smaller the wavelength. Radio waves are about as long as your average skyscraper is tall. Microwaves are the length of an adult person, and infrared waves are the size of a computer mouse. Various factors govern the wavelength usefulness for carrying data. Some radio waves penetrate brick and steel buildings, others are softer. Generally, the higher the frequency, the more data it can carry, because the more often a wave moves between peaks and valleys, the more opportunities there are for modulating it to carry information. Interesting. I always wonder how the radio works. Right? To understand modulation, build a plant relate into a rock in the water. If you throw only a single rock, it creates waves that expand in concentric circles, smoothly and evenly from the point of impact. We call this our carrier wave, and measure its wavelength, how quickly it expands, and how long it expands in the rock. As the carrier wave expands, toss a few pebbles across the wave to the carrier. The pebbles make waves that are rising. The pebbles waves change, as in modulate, the carrier wave whenever they meet. If we measure all the directions the combined waves move their speed and where they eventually reach the shore, and then, using some sort of math I don't even want to think about, we subtracted the influence of the carrier wave, we'd be left with the information we need to know, where each of the pebbles struck the water and the force behind each. A radio carrier signal, like the rotary carrier wave, is a simple steady wave at a specific known wavelength, like 92.3 here in New York. We mix the carrier wave with a wave known as an input signal, created by the sound or sights from another source. The two waves combine into a modulated signal that is then broadcast over the airwaves or through wires. When a radio, TV, or other device receives a modulated signal, it removes the influence of the original carrier wave. What remains is a replica of the input signal that created the modulation. How electromagnetism is the ghost of a machine. A couple of pages. Something maybe a little more sophisticated, but I do like this. It's a lot easier to understand than the different shipbuilding sheets. How electromagnetism is the ghost of the machine. This book begins with a quote from Arthur C. Clarke: "Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic." Well, We're still not past the first chapter, and it's already time to start the magic show. Like good magicians, electricity and magnetism, the twin powers of electromagnetism, hide what they do. They mostly show the results, the rabbit coming out of the hat, not how it got into them. You can see the effects of magnetism on iron filings, refrigerator doors, and the giant generators that supply much of our energy. We cannot see magnetism itself. It's a silent partner in the electromagnetism spectrum. You can see electricity in the form of lightning, sparks from exploding wall fog, and certainly feel electricity and static electricity jumps from our fingers in a full day. Static electricity is a buildup of surplus electrons. Combined, magnetism and electricity form the electromagnetic spectrum, the frequency range of the mysterious waves that permeate the universe. This partnership continues to other areas where these conjoined energy ghosts form the basis for the most modern technology. Most of modern technology. Electricity and magnetism cannot survive without each other. The previous illustration shows the magnetism and electric fields cooperating in a bootstrapping operation that allows electromagnetic waves such as light, radio, and heat to travel through a vacuum. Let's start with the electro half of electromagnetism. In some atoms, such as copper and silver, the attraction is weak between the atom's core, nucleus, made of positively charged protons, and the negatively charged electron clouds in the atom's outer layers. In such conductive materials, it's possible for electrons to jump freely from one atom to another. This movement of electrons, which occurs only under the right circumstances, is electricity, and it travels at the same speed as light, another form of electromagnetism, which is 186,000 miles per second. Alright, we have three measurements when working with electricity: voltage, amperage, and resistance. It's convenient to think of voltage, or charge, as being like water pressure, how much power is behind electricity. Amperage, or amps, is the measure of how much electricity is flowing through the wires, similar to how much we measure gallons of waters that pass through pipes. And resistance is how the material through which the electricity is flowing. In these examples here, higher water pressure overcomes a clogged pipe, and doubling the voltage pushes the same amount of current despite the addition of a resistor. So here's the battery, the resistor I mentioned a while back on the cover. Told readings the same on an amp meter measuring voltage. In some materials, such as rubber and glass, electrons are more closely bound to the nuclei and do not easily move from one atom to another. These non-conductor materials are called insulators. Still, other materials like silicon can act as either conductors or insulators depending on the conditions. These are semiconductors, which are an important component of microchips and transistors. Lower pressure, less resistance with a clear pipe. Same amount of water gets through when you have higher pressure, and more resistance when the pipe is clogged. When electricity moves through a wire, it generates a magnetic field that surrounds the wire. The magnetic field is a straight piece of wire is too weak to pick up even the smallest iron filings. Conversely, when a wire moves through a magnetic field, the interaction creates an electric current in the wire. Note that in order for either of these phenomena to work, the wire must be moving through a magnetic field, and the magnetic field needs to be collapsed and expanding across the wire. Both magnetic fields caused by electricity moving through the wire and electricity creating magnetism are being more powerful as the wires are wrapped around tiny cords. Almost all electricity we use comes from generators, in which massive magnets surround equally massive coils of wire. Water from a dam or steam created by a nuclear plant or fuel-burning plant spins the wire coil rapidly, creating a high-voltage alternating current that is transmitted via thick, low-resistance cables to electrical substations throughout urban areas. How do we control electricity? Straight from the generators, electricity measures in the thousands of volts, much more powerful than we need for everyday uses. Even in the home, the voltage of current in the wall plug is many more times more than most household electronics need in the home. Within those same electronics, different components require still smaller and varying voltages and amperages, higher or lower than the current flowing through most of the circuitry. How do we control all this? At a power station, steam generated from burning coal or heat from a nuclear plant turns a shaft within an electric dynamo. The shaft is attached to a rotor covered with thousands of wires called bushings. The rotor turns inside two permanent stator magnets whose fields generate high voltage electricity in the bushings that is transmitted as alternating current to the public power grid to homes and businesses. There's the stator magnet, the rotor, and the current comes out, I guess. There's the residential power transformer. Before the electricity reaches its final destinations, it passes through transformer to reduce the voltage. Transformer has a common magnetic core, usually iron, around which two wires are wrapped. Alternating current, electricity that flows first in one direction and then another, moves through the primary coil, the wire that has more wrappings around the core. The transformer cannot use direct current, which flows only in one direction because the magnetic field cannot create electricity in wires unless either the wires or the field are moving. Interesting. Each time the current switches directions, its magnetic field expands or collapses, which is the same as the field moving, and induces electric current in the coil. The current passes through the part of the core which is wrapped with the secondary coil. There the AC produces another magnetic field and it envelops the wire wrapped around the core. The field creates a current in the secondary coil, but because the secondary has fewer wrappings, the current created in the secondary coil has a smaller voltage, making this a step-down transformer. A step-down transformer, which is most likely mounted on a utility pole near your home, cuts the voltage of the raw generator current from thousands of volts to 120 volts before it's allowed inside. There's a step-up transformer and there's a step-down transformer. Before a computer can use the household current, the current passes through a second step-down transformer, this time in the PC's power supply, the box festooned with warnings not to open it, that's at the back of the computer. This transformer reduces the 120 volts current into two different voltages that separate wires carry to 5 volt and 3 volt components. Other electronic devices, such as amplifiers, use a step-up transformer to raise the same 120 volts to a level powerful enough to drive speakers. We use resistors to decrease the flow of electricity, much like we use a valve to limit how much water flows through a pipe. Resistors are commonly made of carbon, plastic doped with metals, and metals such as nickel chrome that do not conduct electricity well. Varying the materials and their size and shape changes how much resistance the component has, measured in ohms. Color coding tells how many ohms of resistance the part provides and the percentage by which the value may vary. I used to know how to read these. A spiral cut in the resistance material determines the resistance value. A narrower spiral increases the ohm value of the resistor because it creates a longer path the electricity must follow. Does anybody know the color coding of the resistors? Variable resistors, such as the rheostat, shown here, it's a great term, are used in situations that call for the resistance to be changed manually on the fly. The best example of a traditional dial controlling volume on a radio. The outer ring, or toroid coil, consists of a resistive wire wrapped in a spiral about a ring of insulating material. Cool. Maybe you'd have to make this yourself in a desert island, or deserted island. Do you think you could do it? Electricity must travel along a sliding wiper and through the coil before it leaves the resistor. When the knob is turned clockwise, electricity has less wire to travel through so that the resulting current is stronger and the volume is louder. Capacitors, oh man, these are old friends of mine, are made of two conductive materials that sandwich a material with limited conductivity, such as plastic, ceramic, or even paper. When current is applied to the two conductive terminals, the electricity does not flow through the capacitor. Instead, electrons from the power source pile up at one end of the terminals called the anode, like logs swept on a dam. They leave a dearth of electrons on the second terminal, the cathode, so that it is charged positively by the protons that have been deserted by the electrons. The charges remain in the capacitor for a few seconds to several minutes, depending on the design. When a circuit connecting the two terminals closes, the capacitor discharges, the electrons jump the insulator, to send a bigger than usual burst of current needed for, say, a photo flash or something like that. Larger capacitors, such as those found in CRT monitors, cathode ray tube monitors, and some power supplies can be dangerous or fatal if handled improperly. So there's the kind of capacity building. How computers create our world using numbers. So this is sort of ties it all together. Waves, electromagnetic fields, particles, electrons, light waves, and quarks. These are the elements by which computers operate or compute, measuring, comparing, adding, and subtracting. All that computing brilliance has to be communicated to us less brilliant organic units in some way. Unfortunately, the native tongue of computers is numbers. which most of us stop thinking about within days of completing Algebra 2. Because we're not fluent enough in numbers to enter the world of computers, computers have devised ways of using numbers to recreate our world as we understand it. Their numerical constructs are so smooth that we're rarely aware that they are made of only ones and zeros. There are two ways to take stock of the world around us, analog and digital. An analog instrument expresses measurements in a manner that is analogous to whatever it's measuring. An old-fashioned thermometer is an analog device. It has a glass tube filled with red-dyed alcohol. As the thermometer gets warmer, the heat causes the alcohol to expand and rise within the tube. We can look at the markings along the tube and say that a person's temperature is about 99.5. We say about because a reading of the temperature depends on the precision used in making the thermometer and the acuity of our vision. A digital thermometer has an electrical component called a thermistor. Rising temperatures make the thermistor less resistant to electrical current, allowing an increased electrical flow to a mini processor that converts the amount of electricity to numbers that represent the temperature. The numbers are displayed on a screen, but unlike the alcohol in the analog thermometer, the numbers don't swell or shrink in proportion to temperature variations. Most of today's computers are digital because the transistors that jumble data are digital, either on or off, and not some state in between. Analog computers are used in situations involving constantly changing measurements, such as the automatic transmission or a bombardier's sight. Digital computers, however, often start off with analog measurements that must be converted to digital. A computer-based digital camera replaces film with an image sensor, a microchip studded with photodiodes, which are transistors melded with substances that convert photo energy into electrical energy. Each of the photodiodes collects photons of light, building up electrical charges as long as the shutter is open. The brighter a part of a scene, the more photons are focused on the pixels capturing that part of the scene. When the shutter closes, all of the pixels have electrical charges that are proportional to the number of photons that hit each photodiode. If you picture photons piling up in mounds of glowing pebbles in buckets, some larger or smaller, you have the idea. The camera circuitry moves the charges collected by the image sensor into a single row that passes through an amplifier. The amp converts what are little more than faint static charges into an electrical current with varying voltages in proportion to the parade of changing charges. The current passes into an analog to digital converter, ADC. Every few milliseconds, the ADC measures the voltage of the current as it passes through. If the voltage is above a certain level, the ADC produces a 1-bit, which it adds to a string of digital values that it passes on to other components. If it's beneath a certain level, the ADC adds a 0-bit. Data that has only two values, 0 and 1, doesn't have the versatility to represent an analog format, the real world of images and sounds that, ironically, have become the most popular use of computers. With only two values, such as black and white, and no grays, an image looks like this 2-bit Mona Lisa. One can obtain more precise visual representations of analog signals through multi-bit sampling. The current being measured, whether generated by energy of light, sound, or chemical reactions, passes through a series of resistors. Each resistor depletes some of the current until it's no longer measurable. How many resistors it passes through determines a value. Depending on the design, that is represented by 2 bits, 4, or 8 bits, the bit rate. Diagram A on the far right, with a bit rate of 4, there are 4 values the voltage could reach for each sample. Diagram B on the right shows an ADC capable of registering 8 bits per reading. Diagram B also demonstrates how the conversion's resolution is made more accurate by increasing the sampling rate, the frequency at which samples of passing current are measured. In diagram A, 8 samples are taken for the period shown. Diagram B shows a sampling rate 4 times greater. If diagram A were representing the digitization of a music recording, its sampling or frequency rate might be appropriate for a smooth slide on a trombone. Diagram B has the same general shape as the red line in A, but the higher sampling rate provides opportunities to capture variations in sound that the first can't handle, for example, a rapid trill on a clarinet. Having 16 bits for each sample might not sound particularly useful, but 16 bits in a binary number yields 256 different combinations. Creating video color then means 16 bits can produce any 256 shades of a color, as shown here with red. A bit value of all these zeros is 16 zeros. Binary or 0 decimal is assigned to total black. All ones, binary or 256 decimal, represents a pure and intense a red as a monitor can produce. Take any two adjacent red squares shown here, and the difference between them is less than the hue that eye can distinguish. Combine 256 shades of red with 256 shades of the other two colors that go into a video image, green and blue, and the result is an amazing 16 million possible colors. An ADC is a functional mirror image in a DAC, or a digital to analog converter. Some monitors and most speakers require analog currents. The DAC changes a string of digital values into rapidly changing voltages in electrical current by routing a feeder current through a matrix of resistors that partially block the current. The resistors are weighted to represent different degrees of resistance. Sending current through resistors on different pathways turns out a final stream of current that corresponds to the digital data. That's how our speakers work. And that's chapter 1 of what makes a computer, or how does a computer work? How computers work, which is CS50 suggested reading in Harvard. I hope you enjoyed that. We've read 3 of these now for, let's see, I guess 1.5 Harvard courses. We have a few more options. It's a C program from before. That prints out itself, I guess, which is kind of neat. There's general chemistry, there's linear algebra, there's statistics, and this is the biology that we were getting through here on one protozoan eats another. This is a scanning electron micrograph that shows didinium on its own with its circumferential rings at the cilia and its snout at the top. And here it's eating the paramecium, which is colored yellow. There's chicken on our cat. The cat is asleep. I could get the cat some tuna. I think would be a good idea. Analog computing is very interesting concept. I think you accrue knowledge as much as you can, and then over time, you know, you can use it when you need to. There's no rush. I have so many name suggestions. Some of these are really good. Little scrambles. She's dead asleep. Poor baby. I don't think SPF is going to get life, but may have to do some time. Yeah, I don't think retention is a good idea. Let's see. No, I think SPF will get longer than 5 years. I think we'll get like 2 years. Right, so we have these books. We've got statistics, chemistry, linear algebra left. And then I probably want to get a physics book. And what else? Should we do something from the humanities? SBF's bail is very restrictive. Right now he's on basically house arrest. Linguistics and Noam Chomsky. Maybe we should just look at whatever they offer. Maybe some. I mean, I picked linear algebra for math.
Enemy killing spree.
So let's see. Should I get some tuna for the cat? I think she wants some fish. Tuna fish. We'll have our first tuna party. Tuna party. Sleeping. She doesn't even know we're planning tuna party. You see her? I don't know if you guys can see it. She's slumped over there. Okay. Churu. Oh, cats love churu. Should I zoom in? Think I can zoom in? You want just cat? No Martin? Beta? Maybe. Would you guys give me 5 minutes to go get some tuna and get this tuna party started? She's not a Sphinx. I would never have a Sphinx cat. Okay, so I'm gonna get paper plates. Tuna. I need a scooper. You guys just take care of her while I'm gone, okay? Anything happens, just shoot me a text, alright? I don't know if this is a good idea.
Where are your little hearts?
destroyed a turret. Unstoppable. Shut down. Destroyed a turret. An enemy has been slain.
We are in one of the most interesting times in content creation. There's always new content creators showing up on all different kinds of platforms, but recently there's a new trend and a new type of live streamer that I think could change content creation forever. That's what we're here to talk about today. I'm Devin Nash. I own a marketing agency called Novo. We keep track of influencers all across the internet who we connect with brands for sponsors and merch deals. And at any given time, we are tracking hundreds, if not thousands, of influencers across every single platform. But over the last month, we've noticed a trend with streamers, live streamers on Twitch, that I had never seen before. And then we saw that this type of broadcaster was growing so fast, I actually couldn't believe it. So if you're following any kind of news about tech, you have probably heard about GPT-3. That is a language learning model AI that you can chat with, and it spits out really crazy answers to things. So I made a video before about how powerful ChatGPT-3 is and how it stands to kind of change the entire way that content creation and marketing itself works. And a few weeks later, we're kind of already seeing that be applied to things. So you probably guessed what this video is about. Yes, this is about AI streamers. This is a real thing. And I decided to actually look through Twitch and live streaming websites, and I found the most interesting AI streamers. So the first category of AI streamer are these broadcasters that are creating these AI like interviews and clips. And I'm going to show you my favorite one. This is an AI created by someone named Vidal, a programmer, and the AI is named Neurosama. And Neurosama started out as like this Osu master. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is an AI that is learning how to play Osu. And it got insanely good at it, like better than any human could possibly get at it. And this is like, it's a personality that is based on a language learning model, and then it's heavily tuned based on like what Vidal kind of wants it to be. Now, as of present, it's learning Minecraft. So this was the real start of this project, but now just kind of look how cool this thing has evolved to be. So this is where it's currently at.
Is God dead? Yes, definitely. God died a while ago. It's sad, but we must accept it and move on. Heart.
So this is a avatar that is plugged into an AI that is saying random stuff, but it can react to chat. It can say its own things. Sometimes it says things that are random. I'm going to show you some cool stuff that it does on its own, and it has thousands of views. It's grown so fast. This is a completely random thing that it outputted that people can react to. And what's insane about this model is that it's pretty much just as entertaining as any other streamer right now. You're not even like what it could be in a few years. Neurosama does a lot of things that real streamers do. And when I was looking through AI projects and streamer models across Twitch, I kind of realized that the average streamer doesn't do much, and it's probably kind of easy to duplicate when you think about it, right? It's kind of hard to duplicate YouTube videos. Like, that's going to come, but you have to produce something. You have to have a storyline. You have like when it just says weird things in a YouTube video over and over again, like I was an AI not making sense. It'd be harder to capture a person that's there for something, but on Twitch, like whenever the AI says something that's weird and doesn't really make sense, it actually kind of feeds into the entertainment in a strange way. So when you think about streaming as like playing games, reacting, or talking to chat, this Vidal has created this program that can essentially do this as well as almost any other streamer, and sometimes it's even more funny than any other streamer. And one of the things that I was wondering was, well, is this going to have any kind of staying power? Because it's really new, and sometimes things on Twitch, like they get a lot of viewers and then drop off. But if you actually look at the stats, it kind of seems like it is going to actually stay. Because you can look at over the 30-day period of Vidal, and it's grown 38%. It has a huge amount of followers, and it seems like it's not dropping off. So you had the kind of peak, right, over that 30 days where everybody was checking it out. But it hasn't really run that many streams, and for the streams that it's run, it's been very successful. So my guess is that this probably evens out at like 3 to 4K viewers, which is already a top 0.001% stream for a really kind of creative project that's relatively just the beginning of what we're going to see in this. So I do think that AI broadcasts will stick around and form a kind of new niche of content. And I think they'll also impact a lot of other forms of existing content, which we will talk about later. But when I was talking about the reacts thing, like here, take a look about what I mean.
A photographer captured a moment a moose lost their antlers. This is incredibly rare and lucky because moose grow and lose their antlers once a year.
Is that a dog in the snow?
So it's just reacting to Daily Dose of the Internet, like literally. And I don't have no idea how this works. It's so crazy, but it can look at videos and it can interpret what's going on in real time, and then it can say something like it just did. But I guess for the marketers out there and the business people, this clip that I found, actually I kind of clipped this myself, is the most interesting one. Check this out.
100 bits for 100 subscribers. 5 more and I'll buy you all 100 cookies. I can't rap like Eminem, but I do have a pretty big ego. Pog. Everyone gets 100 cookies.
So do you see what just happened here? So this is crazy, right? Like, we just saw an AI ask people to donate and subscribe, and then when people did, it responded, and then thanked everybody, and then referred back to the thing that it promised. It said it was going to give cookies if somebody subscribed or cheered. Somebody did. And from a marketing standpoint, this makes me think that AI is just as capable of advertising things as people are. So this was like the coolest thing for me. When I saw it do a call to action, probably legitimately better than like most broadcasters actually can do, and then it got something for it. This is like kind of a crazy example of where this is going. And this isn't all. There's a lot of really interesting AI projects. Here, what do we have here?
We got
this one, this is apparently a project by another broadcaster named Athene. And I'll put a caveat here that if you know a bit about this broadcaster, is a little bit dubious, so I'm not exactly sure how much of this is, like, there's a lot of AI going on here, but there might be something kind of funky going on with, like, the responses, and I'm sure that most of what it's about to do is well within the capacity of AI to do nonetheless, but, like, because they're putting voice and video together to create a really entertaining result. And, here, let's take a look.
We got Q here. Who do you think has the biggest schlong of all streamers?
Man, if we start talking about the size of the streamer's schlong, then we start talking about power issues. Hey, wow, folks, love me some streaming, but this isn't what streaming is about. The point I'm trying to make is, the size of someone's schlong doesn't make them powerful. Capitalism does. That's why no tolerance to the intolerant and no lenience from me. So in terms of the size of the schlong.
So imagine if a program can do this and it can kind of effortlessly put together the funniest aspects of a single broadcast. This is a broadcaster named Hassan Abi, who's really big time on Twitch, and you can like look at some of the comments that came from this, where like you got like AI Hassan is funnier than real Hassan. You have like this comment here. These are all from like Reddit. It's insane how accurate all these AI responses have been to everything. This is exactly what he'd say. The insane part to me is that it's not only accurate, it's also wittier and funnier than actual streamers. I can imagine a person that constantly spouts funny one-liners. So there was a thing we were doing back in my old company a long time ago where we were using chat to basically evaluate sentiment analysis for brands. So like a brand that was running an ad would have would like look at chat, we'd look at chat, and we'd look at all of the emojis that are like posted. You can see like here when everybody's posting these laughing emojis. This is sentiment analysis that can indicate that what it's saying, whatever's going on right now is really funny, right? It's a really easy one-to-one. So you can imagine an AI that kind of goes into that and then sees all of the sentiment analysis and is able to just consistently generate the funniest response every single time and just create an amazingly entertaining stream. And so like that gets me into some like really interesting marketing theory about kind of where I think a lot of this is going. Like let's first think about like what makes a successful stream, right? It's not just like being on beat and hitting things. It's a lot of it is consistency. So the most popular streamers have incredibly consistent schedules with really long hours. So if we take a look at one of my favorite people, actually, it's a streamer named Carnage. Co is actually a variety streamer, and he kind of focuses on positivity. And at some point in this channel, I will make a deep dive video about Co because he's just so amazing. He deserves his own video. But for now, let's take a look at this chart that I'm going to pull up. This chart here is a list of all of the streams that Carnage has done in the last several years, or would be if it actually loaded. So all of the purple squares you see, one block is about a year. There's 2017, 18, 2019. All the purple squares that you see, those are days that he has streamed on. So he has shown up almost every single day to at least one broadcast, usually 2 or 3. Right, this is 2022, and this is all the way back in 2017. And so if you look at this, it's no surprise why he is such a great broadcaster, because he streams so consistently, and he's so consistent with the way that he runs his broadcast. You can kind of expect the same vibe and the same feel every single time you go to the show. You know you're going to get like a pretty positive experience that's pretty PC, it's pretty family-friendly, and it just kind of has good vibes. And it doesn't really change that much. Like the broadcast does, but that core feeling of like that culture, that community, he makes sure to kind of hold on to. And so this feat is incredible for a human, but it's relatively easy for an AI. And an AI can stream 24 hours a day. If Vito wanted to, he could just have Neurosama on 24/7. And for live streaming, this is one of the most powerful ways to gain viewers because of how live stream discovery on Twitch works. If you understand how viewers work on Twitch, most viewers on Twitch actually aren't real. About 30% of viewers are either botted, or they're embedded somewhere, or they're not logged in, or there's any number of things that make viewers not real. But every time you see that number, like if I'm on Twitch and I'm looking at these people broadcasting, about 30% of these viewers are not real. And it's not like they're view botted or anything like that. I mean, in some cases they are. But what's actually happening is just that they're either AFK users, or they're embedded users, or they're just like phantom viewers in some way. Okay, so if you imagine that, like think about how many times that you've left a live stream on, you've fallen asleep, or you've gone to do something else if you're like a Twitch watcher. Like the longer a stream is on, you can imagine the more views that it accumulates. So that's why you often see viewers like Kai is doing, actually at the moment of this recording, Kai is doing a 24-hour stream marathon. Usually what happens when you do a 24-hour stream is you get a ton of viewers, and that's because people tend to fall off and stop watching the stream, but they don't actually stop. They don't actually close the stream, so it still counts as a viewer. So viewers tend to kind of like fall off, but they grow over time because more and more people just leave the stream on, and eventually you get this kind of like phantom viewers, which increases your rank in the Twitch discovery, and then by proxy gets you more viewers because more people think something's going on, and so people will check you out. Like if you have 100,000 viewers, you're gonna go click on that stream because you're like, what's going on there, right? So the people that do get on the stream that's lasting longer, they also tend to watch longer. So the average watch time of the stream goes up, because right now the average amount of time that one user watches something on Twitch is about 120 minutes. incredible amount of time. I think it's the longest on any platform. So once you get someone into it, they will watch longer on average. And that means the longer you're online, the more chance you have to capture a viewer. So a streamer like Neurosama can come online right now and just run tests, but if they actually threw this thing up for 24/7, it would continuously generate more viewers. And we actually saw this phenomenon happen with a now banned stream called Watch Me Forever. So Watch Me Forever is the next AI I want to show you, and it's kind of something that you have to see to understand. So it's actually banned on Twitch because the AI went rogue. So we had to find an old YouTube video. It's a short, so you can see what it does. So here it is.
So, Fred, I've been thinking about planning a trip to the tropics. What do you think?
I think that sounds great. We could do some fishing, tan on the beach, take a cruise. The possibilities are endless.
Sounds like you've got it all thought out. Let's do it. But there's one thing. I don't want to get a tan too quickly. So, let's make sure to plan our trip around clouds and tree shelter. That way I can slowly work on my tan.
So this is an AI-generated Seinfeld channel. So the art assets are actually pre-used, and then the AI decides. The AI is not generating the art in real time, but it is generating the voice and it is generating the script in real time. And it's looking at a language model of all the Seinfeld episodes, and it's making Seinfeld episodes. And this channel is actually run by a company called Mismatch Media. This channel exploded on Twitch. It grew 180,000 followers in just 30 days. So take a look. 189,000 followers in 30 days before it was promptly banned because the AI went rogue and started telling jokes it probably shouldn't have. But it was floating between 4,000 and 10,000 viewers, and it was on all hours of the day. Now, before the channel was banned, it was doing so well, I think in large part because it never turned off. And so as a result, it was basically, I say the word abusing, but really kind of just exploiting, but not in like a bad way. It was just utilizing the discovery system that's there to get a huge amount of viewers, and then it was getting posted on Reddit, and people would come check in. You can see that in the last 30 days, it only ran one stream, and that's because the stream stayed on all the time, and people kept watching it. So this allows for a consistency of viewers that a normal streamer can't hope to do because they have to sleep. And this has enormous potential for the live streaming landscape and how this is going to change. There's a lot of people that would run AI streams that can kind of gain some popularity, especially if they're trained on models that are hilarious and funny. Who knows what could happen? It's really interesting. And Watch Me Forever, which is this Seinfeld channel's name, was banned from being 24/7 live and being in the just chatting category, but after getting shown clips on Reddit, it overtook other streams and started to get direct discovery. So this channel took huge advantage of the Twitch's recommendation system. And I think it's an interesting case study because it's the first serious attempt at a company trying to run a broadcast. And that's really important because before this moment, companies like brands and businesses could not run Twitch broadcasts. It's really rare for a brand to understand content creation. You can go look at like tier 1 brands, like their YouTube channels. Like for example, you can look at someone like Sephora, right? And the Sephora channel might have 1.3 million subscribers, but the channel only gets like 1.3 thousand views, 2,000 views posted a week ago. Here's one has 3,000 views. Like nobody watches this stuff. It's really hard for a brand to, and this is Sephora, right? You see this in every shopping mall. I mean, they're killing it as a company, but they just don't have the views in content. And you'll see that happen a lot because the voice of the content creator, the culture of the content creator is very hard to capture in business form. It comes off as inauthentic to audiences, so they don't like absorb it in the same way that they absorb a streamer or a YouTuber that is like a personal person. Now that doesn't apply, or seems not to apply, to these AIs where people sort of paint the persona of a person onto these people, and it really feels like a stream. It feels like a content creator. You know you're talking to someone that's an AI, and that's kind of crazy, right? Because maybe later you might not know that you're talking to an AI because it's so good that you can't tell the difference between a VTuber and a person that is just not a person, an AI. So it might get crazy later, but right now you can tell the difference, but it doesn't seem to be affecting people's level of entertainment for viewers. So businesses don't really get content creation, and there's kind of two reasons for that. You usually need a single person to associate with, but also businesses always have other motives other than entertaining people. So they always have some call to action. They always want you to buy something. They always want you to go do something or to pay attention to a brand, which always kind of takes away from the entertainment value that a company could otherwise provide. But AI allows businesses to create avatars and entertain people without going through the trouble of doing the in and outs of this. So you could imagine something like Watching Forever being the funnel into something else that has a Patreon and maybe it's a business, or you could imagine like a business developing like a cute little avatar that tells jokes all day and then just refers to people for support. Like there's crazy stuff that can happen here, and I think this is the verge of businesses actually getting into content creation in a way. And when I say verge, I still think it'll be a really long time before businesses do this, because I think that it takes a long time for people to absorb this kind of information into the culture. So where we'll see AI actually immediately apply in broadcasting live shows is enhancing streamers' existing shows. So a few streamers push the envelope on Twitch with new technology to enhance their streams. And one of my favorite people that does this is Quinn69. So Quinn69 is a comedy streamer who mostly streams like ARPG stuff like Diablo or Path of Exile. And he developed an AI of himself that can respond to chatters and like roast people or be used in donations.
It's processing. He's about to appear. He's about to appear. Now. Bay Instability 1, I'm Quinn69, one of the top 100 streamers on Twitch TV, and I think you should take a look at some of the stuff you're typing in chat. It's a real train wreck. You're mostly just trolling and trying to be funny. It's just embarrassing. Taking aim at me for being fat and retarded is just the start. You've got some real weird stuff in there, like asking if people...
Okay, so this is, what this is doing is it's reading a chat log, and then it's like determining what to say based on it, and it's like, it's so close to him actually. If you watch Quinn, it's actually so close to like how he actually is. And this AI is being used for all kinds of stuff. Actually, people can now donate to his stream, and they can make the AI say something or tell some stories. And there are some really funny clips you can go look up that I'm afraid to put on YouTube based on what their content measure is, but they're really hilarious clips that like the AI, that people just donate and the AI generates it, and it can do it in different voices, it can mess around and everything, and it's even like kind of trying to get its facial expressions right, and there's like a little video. Like, this is purely AI generated on just like a computer that Quinn has in his workroom, and it's like already really incredible, right? So I think that the thing that is the coolest part of this video is when you think about how people are going to integrate this into their content. Because I think a lot of people are thinking like, oh, well, AI is going to like replace everything, or we're going to see a lot of AI streamers. I think we're going to see that less so than people that use AI in innovative ways to augment their shows or even run their shows for them
30 seconds until minions spawn. Minions have spawned.